It is time to talk about Final Fantasy I, the game that started the whole flagship of the Final Fantasy series. Why I am doing this series is more or less that Dawntrail has not much to offer right now, at least personally for me, and it's a good way to learn about what Final Fantasy is actually about, knowing the references that are made in Final Fantasy XIV. So you can say that I'm kind of reverse referencing here, which is a fun thing to do. And more importantly, what makes this series so special to people, which also is a question that I want to have answered. The game came out almost 40 years ago on the NES. Yes, 40 years ago, you're that old. And the community has kind of romanticized the whole story behind the game. How Square was at the brink of bankruptcy only to release one final game, and which they called Final Fantasy. Which is not true, they wanted to call it Fighting Fantasy, but due to copyright laws they had to change it last minute. And the game was such a success on the NES that soon more followed. So even though I played the Pixel Remastered version, I do envision that how it looked like 40 years ago to see what made it so special back in those days. And more importantly, is it still fun to play these days? Here you can choose your party composition. There are several jobs to choose from fighter, thief, monk, black mage, red mage, white mage. You are free to choose however you want it. Do you want to run the game with 4 fighters? Go ahead. Do you want to go with 4 black mages? Sure. You can make it yourself as hard as possible, and it gives a lot of replayability as well. Of course you can give them a name, and once you have given them a name, you are greeted with a small in-game cutscene that sets the premise of the whole story. Once the cutscene is over, you immediately start in one of the most important maps of the whole game, the overworld. The overworld is a map where most of the stuff is playing out. There are various cities, dungeons, or other happenings, but let's first start with the city. The game puts you at the doorsteps of Cornelia. Cornelia is a city that shows you the basics. You have a small amount of gil to spend, and the city will show you where you can spend it on. There are various shops to visit. You can enter the armorer where you can buy armor, the weaponry where you can buy weapons. There's an inn where you can rest up, where your party can be fully recovered. And very important in this game, there are 2 shops, white magic and black magic. The magic being very important in this game. Something I found out the hard way. There's also an item vendor that can help you with buying items you can use in battle. Once you are all geared up, it is time to visit the castle. Or at least the game forces you to visit the castle. We are met with the king. It appears that a knight of Cornelia named Garland has captured the princess. And we are tasked to rescue the princess. A pretty straightforward concept. So once we have done looking around, it's time to go back to the overworld. And once we start wandering into the overworld, the most iconic thing happens. Combat. We are greeted with various monsters and we have various options to choose from. We see our party to the right and the monsters on the left. And each member can have a turn. In this turn you can choose what that certain party member is going to do. Will it defend? Will it flee? Will it use an item? Will it fight? It is here you strategize on how you want the battle to be. Well, the first monsters are just tutorial of course with how the things work, since they all die in just 2 shots. But this is a great way to introduce the whole combat system. Once you have defeated them, you are greeted with the most iconic sound Final Fantasy has. And more importantly, you see the ranking up system. This system is quite important. Every party member, depending on their job, increases a certain amount of stats. So each battle that you do not only makes you strong, it also gives the feeling of getting stronger. That is a feeling that is very important in the RPG. The game makes you play around a little, get those levels up, and we finally found the Chaos Shrine. In the Chaos Shrine, there is our first boss battle with Garland. And you immediately know it's a boss battle because the whole theme changes, and Garland is a lot harder than the previous mobs that we fought. After defeating him, we rescue the princess who will take us back to the castle. As a reward for rescuing her, the king offers us to open up the bridge to the north. After we leave the castle, a small cutscene plays out with them repairing the bridge. And as we walk over to the bridge, one of the most iconic things in the whole RPG series is taking place. You are greeted with this screen and this music. The iconic Final Fantasy tune, so to say. The screen is telling us that the journey has just begun and that we are free to wander the world. Which is what we are going to do as well. There are lots of things to discover and you are free to do so. Of course you get your casual monsters showing up, but the game is not punishing you if you wander off to go exploring. And here we see our first little references showing up, like Matoya's cave for example. Which as an FF14 player is a very nice touch to see. In the cave we are also greeted with Matoya, who has lost her crystal eye. And we need to find it. And you can see that there's a whole premise going on with little side quests leading up to the bigger quest. And that's a really nice touch. Helping people around you and slowly progresses through the story. The story being that we need to restore the 4 crystals to save the world of an impending doom. it is also not much later that we reach the second town. In that town, some pirates are causing ruckus, and after defeating those pirates, we are rewarded with a ship. We can now travel across the sea, which is opening up a lot more possibilities and makes the world feel even larger. And later on, you even acquire an airship, which opens up the whole world for you to explore. And there's a lot to explore, from various towns to even hidden dungeons, to even small secrets that are just optional. And the game lets you freely explore to do so. It makes it kind of fun, but also kind of hard when you get lost. And oh boy, I got lost. I remember that I didn't fully explore one map, and I've been searching for things for the thing for an hour, only to see that I needed to just walk a little bit further to see the NPC that I was looking for. Or even finding the water temple. Apparently the entrance was just in town, which is also kind of a whole premise here. Talk to the NPCs. The NPCs are giving you hints on where to go next, which is also kind of a thing from the past. Because, well, nowadays you are just almost highlighted to the next direction, and it's a breath of fresh air. The game has just a small premise of, well, restore the crystals, and the crystals are guarded with the Fiends. The Fiends being big bosses, and after defeating those bosses, the final dungeon opens up back to the Chaos Shrine. And here shows a little bit more depth to the story. Where we first were just doing tasks, now we get actual lore, like we are getting sent 2000 years into the past. In the final dungeon, you are facing the 4 Fiends to finally reach the final boss room, which is Garland. And here it is shown that Garland created a time loop. By defeating him, the 4 Fiends sent him into the past, where he, in the past, sent the 4 Fiends back to the future, and thus creating a time loop. Yes, this was the first game they already start with the time shenanigans. And eventually it is shown that he was Chaos. And we have to kill Chaos. And that is the final battle. After defeating him, we sever the time loop, and we restore the world to what it once was. Now this is the whole basic premise of the game. And more importantly, what do I feel about it? It was a great game, honestly. I caught myself having the feeling to wanting to play a game, and it was a feeling that I didn't have for a very long time, which was great. Stuff was easy to learn in this game. Although if you're not talking with NPCs like I did in the beginning, then you are missing out on some stuff, and then things can get pretty difficult. Even though the whole premise is the same, exploring is fun for a first time, and with the customization of your party, it sure has replayability options. But to me personally, it will be limited, because, well, you have everything explored already. Oh, and don't get me started on the music, they did such a phenomenal job at touching that up. I can see why there was such a hype. And to be fair, I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm looking forward to the second one. Surely things will get better, right?